Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. I hope you all are fine. Students, today we are going to talk about a poem, and the name of this poem is Landscape with the Fall of Icarus, written by William Carlos William. And this poem is given at your books Oxford and International Approach, page number 121. Students, I have chosen this poem because you have just read a myth in your last comprehension, and the name of that myth was Daedalus and Icarus. This poem is quite related to that myth. That's why I have chosen this. So we are going to know more about it in next slides in the next material. The learning objective is to be able to understand the use of enjambment in the poem. What is enjambment? We will know about it in next slides. This is, here you can see the exact wording of the poem. The exact poem. So let me recite it. According to Bruegel, when Icarus fell, it was spring. A farmer was plowing his field. The whole pageantry of the year was awake, tingling near the edge of the sea, concerned with itself. Sweating in the sun, that melted the wings wax. Insignificantly off the coast there was a splash quite unnoticed. This was Icarus drowning. So this was the whole poem. So now we will discuss it one by one. Now we will discuss it further. Before we examine the poem, we should first go over Bruegel's painting that inspired it. On your screen, you can see a picture that is a painting that is painted by Peter Bruegel. So this painting is actually inspired by one Greek myth, the same Greek myth that you read in your previous lesson of comprehension. It relates a story about a father and a son. Guys, you are very well familiar with the story of that myth, but let me give you a brief recap of that story. The name of father was Daedalus, built wings to allow his son Icarus to fly away from where they had been imprisoned. They had been imprisoned in Crete, we know very well. So Icarus got a little too excited about the ability to fly. And even though his father told him not to, he flew too close to the sun. He flew so high, and he flew so close to the sun, and that caused the wax in the wings melted and caused Icarus to fall into the ocean. So this was the brief story of that myth. This painting is inspired by, this painting is painted after the painter was inspired by the Greek myth. And then this poem that we are discussing today, this poem is the inspiration of this you can say this painting. This painting captures the day when Icarus attempted to fly and drowned in the ocean. This you can see in the picture. There is a daytime and many scenes are also given. So landscape. So if you talk about the topic of the poem, landscape. Landscape means the scene, the scenery, the whole scene when Icarus fell into the ocean. In the painting, you can see it's spring. There are images of farming, of herds or flocks of animals, and of ships in the sea, like people are moving, people are going in and out of that island. And there is also a tiny set of legs. You can see two legs here. These are the legs of Icarus when he fell into the ocean. Okay, so you can see the legs that are upside. If we talk about all the lines of the poem one by one, or we can say if we analyze the poem, so we can say that in the very first line there is an introduction of the painter, like in the previous slide if we see, according to Bruegel. So Bruegel is actually the name of the painter. The poet gives the introduction of the painter, means simply he says that he is going to talk about the painting of the poem, or in easy words you can say the poet has described the painting of Bruegel in the form of poem. There is an introduction of the poem. And in this first line, the poet introduces us to the story which forms the backbone of the both the painting and the story and the poem. From the next we can say second point is the inspiration from the myth Daedalus and Icarus. Here you can see that we should be aware that it will deal with the tragic and avoidable death of Icarus. Like as I told you, this is the inspiration from the myth, and in this myth we can see that this is the tragic death of Icarus, because that myth ended with the death of Icarus when he fell into the ocean. Next is spring season, and it is clear from the use of colors in the painting. If we say like the poet continues on to say that when the tragedy occurred, it was a time of spring. It was spring season. If we have a look on the painting, if we have a look on the painting once again, we can see that there are this is the spring season, and you can see the greenery everywhere. So this adds depth to the meanings, as spring is generally associated with the life, with birth, with natural beauty, with greenery, with rebirth of everything, and spring is the season of spring is the season of greenery and flowers. So spring season, as I told you about this. Next is a young man drowns in a sweet pastoral scene. Pastoral means the scene of village or the scene where is greenery everywhere. So here we can see that a young man drowns in a sweet pastoral. Young man is Icarus. Sorry, I forgot to discuss one thing here. Like we can see that we can also look at the colors used by Bruegel, the painter in this painting. We can interpret them as associated to spring, like these colors are associated to spring only. The water is bright green here, and miscellaneous plants are blooming around the hill in the bottom. You can see many plants here. These are some plants. So there are certain types of plants that are blooming here. In amongst what seems like a peaceful pastoral scene, this is as I told you, this is the pastoral scene. And a young man drowns. These lines are used to describe the scene for one who has never seen the painting. Like if you haven't seen this painting, after reading the wording of the poem, you can have the image of the things in your mind, like the farmers plowing and other flowers that are blooming over there. On next slide, we can see the analysis of the lines from line number 7 till line number 11. The first point is certain feeling in the air. In this line, the poet describes a certain feeling in the air. In this case, it seems as though the air was awake, tingling near. Sometimes seems to be developing in the scene. Tingling, here the poet has used the word tingling, that is associated with spring, but it can also be associated, and it can also refer to the darkness of what is occurring to Icarus. A tragedy under the happy circumstances of work. You can say it alludes to a tragedy under the happy circumstances of the work, like people are working in the farms. If people are working and they all are happy because of the spring, because the spring is the season of new life for them, so they are working happily. In that happy circumstances, a tragedy occurred. And what is that tragedy? That is the fall of Icarus. In painting, you can also see, or the poet also describes the spot of the tragedy. What is the spot of tragedy? The poet uses edge of the sea. These are the wording of the poet. Edge of the sea. It is a spot just like the rest of the scene that is portrayed. The spot does not care for anything but itself. Like the spot is unaware of the surrounding. The spot does not care of anything around him. The spot does not care what people are doing on the island. The spot does not care what people are doing on the beach, but it is concerned with itself. And no one noticed actually. People remain busy in their tasks. People remain busy in their tasks. The sea may have things happening around and in it, like sea is so large, sea is so big, there can be many things, happening, but in reality these things do not impact its larger body. Like if someone falls into the ocean, it does not make any, you can say, it does not create any problem to the whole ocean, or to the whole city, or to the whole sea. Next analysis line number from lines 12 till 20. The first point is sun's brightness, beneficial for the farmers but harming for Icarus. While the sun's brightness in this moment might be beneficial to the workers because this is the time of spring, and we know that sun's brightness is compulsory for the farmers, so they that is beneficial for the farmers, but the same brightness of the sun, or the same sunlight, was harming Icarus because of sunlight the wax on his wings got melted. It means that was harming, the sunlight was harming for Icarus. Next point is unsignificantly. Basically the word is insignificantly, but the writer has used unsignificantly. Why he has used unsignificantly? He has used it because no one noticed what happened to Icarus. All the people remained busy in their tasks. No one noticed. It means his fall was not significant for anyone. So that's why the writer has used unsignificant instead of using insignificantly. No one noticed what happened to Icarus except his father Daedalus while flying. As we know that the father was still flying in the air, so only he was the person who noticed the fall of Icarus and no other one noticed. You can see a shock in last 3 lines. How it is a shock? Because here the tragedy is occurred for which the whole setting is presented. Before these lines there was a setting of the island, there was a setting of the mountain, there was a setting of the whole landscape, of the whole scene, but here the tragedy is going to happen. And what is that tragedy? There is a splash sound. Now splash is used here as onomatopoeia, and it means the sound of the fall of Icarus that goes quite unnoticed. The words in the inverted commas are the exact wording of the poet. Like splash means he has used the word splash to show that here the Icarus fell, and his fall was quite unnoticed. Like no one noticed it. The light sound of splash meant nothing to those who heard it. Like if someone has heard it, so it was remained unnoticing because it was the sound of Icarus drowning. The poetic devices in this poem are alliteration, means so like sweating in the sun. What is alliteration? Alliteration means if one consonant sound is repeated more than one times in one line, that is called alliteration. One consonant sound, like sweating in the sun. S sound here, and here you can see sun. S sound. So S sound is used twice in one line. The next example in the poem is wings wax. These words are starting with V sound. Wings V and wax V. V is again a consonant sound, and this is used 2 times in one line. This is called alliteration. Next poetic device is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is splash. Splash is the sound of the fall of Icarus. So splash is onomatopoeia. Enjambment. As we read the learning objective, like we have to be able to talk about enjambment. We have to be able to learn about enjambment. Enjambment is no punctuation in the whole poem except the final full stop. If you have a look on the poem once again, so you cannot see any punctuation in the whole poem. There is no punctuation, there is no comma, there is no full stop. Only final full stop at the last line you can see here. So this technique, when a writer is not using anything, when a writer is not pausing, when a writer is not using any punctuation mark in the poem, and the writer is using the lines in a flow, writer is using the lines, writer is using the line as there is only, you may say, the run on lines, or there is a style of prose. So this style is called enjambment, when there is a prose style and there is no rhyming scheme here, there is no rhyming pattern here, there is no punctuation here. So this technique, this poetic device is called enjambment. No punctuation in the whole poem except the final full stop. Now it's your turn to do homework. The question of your homework is: springtime in Europe is when nature comes alive again after the winter. And springtime in Europe, not only in Europe but the whole world, springtime is the time when nature comes alive after the winter, when you can see greenery everywhere, when you can see flowers everywhere. So which words and phrases help to create this atmosphere? You are supposed to find the words and phrases from the poem that are supporting this point and that are helping to create this atmosphere. Next, the second part of this question is you have to analyze the whole poem in your own words. Like you have to, like I gave the analysis in the like I gave the analysis of the poem, in the same way you have to analyze the poem in your own words. And then the poetic devices to include in your analysis are alliteration and enjambment, and the examples of both things are given in the previous slides. So guys, now you have to give the answer of this question, and we know very well that the answer of this question would not be of 4 to 5 lines, it would be almost of 1 page. You know very well, because there is one question in the poem and this is a long question. You are supposed to write as much as possible by giving minimum 2 to 3 evidences from the poem. So let's start writing and then do it on your literature notebooks. And if you find any difficulty, you can ask us in the comment box. So that's it from my side. Inshallah, we will be with you in next lesson with new topic, with new enthusiasm and new passion. Okay, fi amanillah.